So here we go again. Jimmy Butler has been suspended by the Miami Heat once again. This time, sort of indefinitely. It's at least for 5 games, but looks like it could be for most of the season left. I mean, what can you say here really? This is very unprofessional. And I understand that Jimmy wanted the extension. I understand that he sort of lifted the Miami Heat back title contention, and he feels that he deserves that extension. But what he's doing now sort of proves every organization he's been in right. And that's the problem here. It's not the first time for Jimmy. Time and time again, he's proven that he just can't be trusted. When he plays, especially in the playoffs, he's great. But his play is also slipping a bit. He's not a young chicken anymore. It's normal, and when you have a cancer in the locker room that just continues to show that he's a cancer everywhere he has been, well, your NBA career might just be close to being over. I'll say it right now, I don't think any team will give Jimmy what he wants money-wise. He has like a $50 million option next year? Well, good luck getting that next season. It's just not worth it anymore. Jimmy is not a superstar player. He's a starter, he's a very good player, but not a superstar. And why, as an organization, you should invest the health of your locker room and a major part of your cap space for a player who will get tired of you after a few years. It has come to a point that you can't blame it on the organization anymore. You need to blame it on Jimmy himself. So it all started in Chicago. Jimmy had evolved in a superstar there, but still the team was going nowhere. The team front office didn't really believe that Jimmy is the player they need to build around, or felt that they can't invest that much into just making playoffs and getting bounced out year after year. Jimmy has always been a demanding leader, and that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, including his teammates. His tensions with the front office were simple. He wanted to win, he felt he could win, but front office didn't do their job. Okay, but what about teammates? Back in Chicago, he had underlying tensions with Derrick Rose, the previous face of Chicago Bulls. Jimmy also regularly called out younger players for not playing hard, the lack of effort, the lack of focus, and yes, he probably was right. Maybe young players weren't playing as hard as him, but who was? It doesn't mean that it has to be public and that you have to ruin the team chemistry because you don't feel everyone is as engaged as you. And of course, coaches. He didn't have the warmest relationship with then Bulls head coach Fred Hoiberg. On more than one occasion, he voiced his frustrations with the coaching staff that they need to coach harder. It was clear that the organization wants a different direction. Okay, so every bridge is burned in Chicago. Time to move on. So he was traded to Minnesota. A new start, a new talented team, right? And everything seemed good at first. He helped the Timberwolves make the playoffs for the first time in 14 years. But behind the scenes, he clashed with more laid-back personalities of Karl Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins. He didn't hesitate to question their work ethic, defensive commitment, and focus, called them too soft and lacking the killer instinct needed to win. And once again, he probably was right in a way, but there's another way to go about it. Butler didn't believe the young stars were as committed to winning as he was. But try different methods. If you can't make them follow your example, maybe you're not as good of a leader. And then came the contract dispute. Jimmy wanted a max extension, but instead the Wolves offered him a 4-year, $110 million deal. Butler felt underappreciated and felt the Wolves were more committed to Towns and Wiggins, who both had signed bigger deals recently. And again, I can see this from Jimmy's perspective. He had every right to be frustrated, but to sub yourself in a scrimmage with third-string players, taunt your teammates yelling, "You need me, you can't win without me," saying that to your teammates, general manager, that's just not a way to go about this. Again, a complete fracture in his relationship with his team, so he requests a trade. Tom Thibodeau wanted to convince Jimmy to stay, but everything just turned toxic and the team had to move on from him. So Jimmy was traded to the Philadelphia 76ers, and once again, everything started great. They had a good regular season, had a good run in the playoffs, and their run ended in a heartbreaking fashion when Kawhi Leonard hit the buzzer beater in Game 7. But everyone forgets that Jimmy had problems with Embiid and Ben Simmons, and yes, him and Embiid had mutual respect, but Simmons was less receptive to Butler's approach. Who knows, maybe it was Jimmy who started Ben Simmons' demise. Butler also regularly expressed his frustration with Brett Brown's offensive schemes, wasn't a fan of the front office, didn't like how he was utilized within the offense as he wanted to have the ball more often. So after the season, when his contract was over, Philadelphia decided to re-sign Tobias Harris instead of him. Which of course is quite dumb. Butler is a better player. But doesn't it tell you something? Doesn't it tell you that something was completely wrong there if organization decides to resign the lesser player instead of you? And you can say the organization was wrong. They were too committed to Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, and were apprehensive about how those three would mesh together. But they had their reasons. And Butler said that he wants to go somewhere to be the number one option to a team which would embrace him as their leader. And Miami Heat it was. And everyone saw this as a perfect fit. A strict organization, strict culture, under the leadership of Pat Riley, it seemed perfect at the time. Butler led the Heat to the 2020 and 2023 NBA Finals. But everything turned sideways last summer, when Jimmy wanted a 2-year extension. He declined the extension and the party started once again. During the season, little by little, Butler was playing a smaller role for the Heat than he had in previous years. The Heat was probably trying to move on from him while still using his basketball skills to win games. Butler didn't like it, and he started 2025 by saying that he doesn't believe he can be happy in Miami anymore. Then he was suspended for 7 games for conduct detrimental to the team. Then he returned, and you can see him wearing Chicago Bulls jersey in post-game interviews, still voicing his frustrations, and then he misses a team flight. So he gets suspended once again, this time for 2 games. And just when he's about to be back with the team, he walks out of a shoot-around after learning that he would not start over Haywood Highsmith, and gets suspended indefinitely. So now he probably won't play another game for the Heat. The real question is, where does Jimmy go from here? Every other organization sees what's going on. Jimmy is 35 years old. He has 2-3 years left of good basketball in him. He wants max money, and he brings so much drama with him. If you are an organization with young players, expect Butler to not be happy with their effort, skills, playing style, or maybe even their haircuts. Expect Butler to question everything in his new home because, well, that's what he's done 4 out of 4 times. So which team that is championship ready wants to take on an aging problem? A small market team could want him to boost their ticket sales, but how long before it turns into a disaster when the team Butler is on doesn't win as much as he likes? If the Heat trades him now, it's for peanuts, or another bad contract like Bradley Beal for example. A likely scenario also is that he stays with the Heat and just doesn't play at all this season. After the season, he could just leave and sign with another team. He loses money, and I don't think he gets more than $30 million a year from his next team. So knowing Jimmy, he could opt into his $52.4 million player option and make this mess last longer, just to sort of stick it to the organization. But he would just be sticking it to himself. He's the one that's losing money. He's the one who keeps proving that you can't invest into him long term. And at the end of this all, don't you see how Jimmy Butler has turned into a player he used to hate? He used to hate teammates who weren't playing hard, were too focused on other things, were messing up teams' chemistry and chances to win games. Well, welcome to the club, Jimmy, because you're doing all of that right now yourself. You haven't shown a willingness to play, to compete, and continue to show unprofessionalism for one of the most respected organizations out there. All because you didn't get another extension. Yes, like no player ever has gone through that. Instead of 2 more years at $50 million, you get 1 year at $52.4. Cry me a river. But what do you think, guys? Which side are you on? How would you describe the situation? Where will Jimmy play next? Who will take a chance on him? Please leave your comment down below. Don't forget to leave a like for the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much for watching. This is Purple Prince, and I'm out.